Well, there's a phrase that we've probably heard like hundreds of times. We've heard it so many times that you can probably complete the sentence. The phrase is, life isn't about the destination, it's about the, say it with me, journey, right? And it sounds poetic and it fits nicely on a coffee mug and it'll probably get you a lot of views on your reel or on TikTok. But I have sort of a hot take this morning, and my hot take is I don't actually think this is true. Like, I actually don't think it's fully true. This idea that life isn't about the destination, but it's actually all about the journey. In fact, if you ask me, what is more important, the destination or the journey, I would say neither. And this is different because in my 20s, I would have said the most important thing is the destination. I'm competitive. Anybody else with me? Like, I want to reach the goal. I want to hit the target. I want to accomplish the thing. And in my 20s, if you would have asked me what's the most important thing, I would have been like, it's about accomplishing the goal. But in my 30s, I grew up a little bit. And now in my 30s, I would have said that the most important thing is the journey. It's not about the destination. It's about the process of getting there. But now as I'm officially 39 and the Grim Reaper called my 40s is breathing down my neck, I think I'm realizing that while where you're going matters, and while enjoying the journey matters too, I'm learning what matters most is who you travel with. If you were to ask me what is more important, the destination or the journey, I would say neither. I think it's the company. I think it's the people that you walk with, that if you're ever going to become who you need to become on the journey in order to reach those goals, is connected to the people you walk with and do this life with. And the hardest journeys, it's amazing, can become meaningful, even beautiful, when you have the right people with you. And if you were to reach your goals and reach your destinations, if everything on your vision board became a reality, but you had no one there to celebrate with you, would that really be success? I don't think so. I doubt you think so as well. I mean, think about it. 40 years from now, 30 years from now, a long time down the road when you look back on, let's say, like your favorite vacation. Maybe you're thinking about a vacation you took 20 years ago. I doubt any of you, if I'm like, tell me about it, that you're going to be like, oh, the thread count on the sheets, or the hotel was so nice. What you're going to talk about are probably the memories you made and the people you spent the time with. Or when you look back on seasons of suffering that you endured, I bet you'll discover that you didn't survive because you're just so strong and so optimistic, but you actually survived because someone that you needed showed up, or you survived because someone stayed when everyone else left. See, life is not just about where you're going, and I don't think it's just about how you get there, both important things. But I think life is perhaps mostly about the company you travel with. I recently watched the Christmas episode from Ted Lasso. Has anyone else seen the TV show? One of my favorite shows ever. And the first season Christmas episode has this really powerful moment where Leslie Higgins, he says to everyone at the dinner table this really beautiful speech, but he ends the speech by saying, here's to the family you were born with and the family you build along the way. And I love that line because it reminds me that while none of us got a choice in the family we were born into, all of us have a choice in the family that we're going to build along the way. Hey, you don't always get to choose where your journey will take you, but you do get to choose the company that you travel with. And today I want to invite you to choose well, because I believe the company you travel with may very well be the key ingredient for this year being better than any other. And that idea that family can be something you build, not just something you inherit, is actually something Jesus talked about in Mark chapter 3. So if you have your Bibles, turn to Mark 3, but if not, the words will be on the screen. Mark 3, verse 31, it says this, "Then Jesus' mother and brothers came to see him. They stood outside and sent word for him to come out and talk with them. There was a crowd sitting around Jesus, and someone said, 'Your mother and your brothers are outside asking for you.' And Jesus replied, 'Who's my mother? Who are my brothers?' And then he looked at those around him and said, 'Look, these are my mother and my brothers. Anyone who does God's will is my brother and sister and mother.'" Now, Jesus isn't being sentimental. He's actually being really disruptive with what he's talking about here. See, Jesus' biological family shows up, and the reason that his family shows up and they're calling for Jesus is because Jesus is saying some crazy things. He's saying he's the Son of God. He's saying he's the Messiah. And if any of your friends said that about themselves, you would think they're like one fry short of a Happy Meal as well, right? And so Jesus' family hears Jesus saying these things, and they go, we need to get him out of like talking to people before he says anything else that's even more crazy. And instead of Jesus excusing himself, Jesus looks at the people seated around him, and he goes, this is my family. These are my brothers, and these are my sisters. This is my mother, and this is my father. Now, Jesus isn't rejecting his birth family. He's redefining it, though, and refusing to limit the idea of family to simply those you share the same biology with. And I don't know about you, if you come from a broken house and family like I do, this is really good news. That you're not just stuck with the family you have, but you can build family along the way. See, this is Jesus standing between the family he was born into and the family he was building. Family for Jesus wasn't defined by a shared bloodline, but family for Jesus was defined by a shared direction. Jesus goes, who's my brother and my sisters? Who are you talking about? And his answer is, anyone who does God's will is my brother, my sister, and my mother. In other words, Jesus says, the people who are moving the same way I'm moving, that's my family. Those are my brothers. The people that are walking in the same direction, that's my sisters and my mother. Now, it's important to say this clearly, and I want to say it just like from the beginning here because it can get misunderstood. Jesus is not saying that people are simply tools for your own personal growth. This isn't about using others to get where you're going. He's not saying that community is meant to be seen as a commodity. He's not saying that you should say things like, hey, I'll stick around as long as you help me, or I'll commit as long as this benefits me, or I'll belong as long as this serves my goals. That isn't family, that's networking. And it's perhaps one of the main barriers that keep people from community that they long for, that they treat people like tools to be used instead of people to be loved. And if you treat people like tools to be used instead of people to be loved, you will not have many friends. And if you only look to have a friend, but you are unwilling to be a friend, then you will not have many friends. See, the biblical community that Jesus describes isn't solely about personal benefit. It's about mutual formation. It's about mutual formation. You don't walk together simply because, well, they're useful to me. You walk together because together you go further, faster than you could ever go on your own. And in walking together, slowly and imperfectly, you find yourself over the course of time changed. Now, I was talking to somebody recently that was like, Travis, I'm just not good at making friends. But I pray, I read the Bible, I have a relationship with God. That's all I need. And they were like saying this like, I'm super Christian. And it was interesting because like, well, what's interesting is all Adam had was God in Genesis, and that wasn't enough for him. God made Eve. God acknowledged in Genesis chapter 2 that man should not be alone. See, I think it's really important to understand that while you do need God, and I love if you have this close personal relationship with Jesus, I love that you have that, and I want that for you, but you don't just need God, you need one another. You need the person on your left, on your right, and behind you and in front of you, and guess what? They need you as well. And this is why this teaching matters so much in this cultural moment that we find ourselves in, because we live, and you're not going to be surprised by this, like we live in an age of radical individualism. No one's surprised by that, right? Like the message and the narration of our culture is all about me, myself, and I. Everything is about my truth, my journey, my healing, my success, my goals, my destinations, even faith. In many church contexts have become something we consume instead of something that we actually commit to. So like, I'll follow you, Jesus, unless it no longer serves me well, or unless it is uncomfortable for me, then I'm not gonna do that. You see, what has happened in our culture is we've been sucked into this narrative of individualism, and it has not lived up to the promises. This idea that it can just be all about you, and if you live your life with you at the center and everyone on the sidelines, then you will find everything you're looking for. It hasn't delivered. It hasn't delivered on the promise. In fact, the U.S. Surgeon General not too long ago called loneliness a public health crisis. Gen Z and millennials are reporting the highest levels of depression and loneliness ever recorded. Despite being the most digitally connected generation, we are the most relationally isolated. We've never been more connected, and yet we've also never been more alone. And the good news is that the scriptures have always offered us a better way and invited us to step into that way. The scripture consistently pushes back on this narrative that you can do it all on your own. In fact, the author of a book called Hebrews in the New Testament, in Hebrews chapter 10, verse 25, he says this. He says, do not forsake the assembling of yourselves together. Now, if you've been raised in the church or you've spent a decent amount of time in the church and heard a lot of sermons, maybe you've probably heard this verse. And if you've heard the same sermons I've heard, those same sermons all come to the same conclusion, which was you should go to church on Sunday. I mean, I've heard hundreds of messages on this verse, and 90% of them have all come back to the same conclusion that you need to be at church on Sunday. But I just want to say something. Maybe it's weird, being a pastor at a church, speaking to you on a Sunday. I don't think that's what this verse is about. I don't think that that's the big idea that the author of Hebrews was trying to get across to us. There was no Sunday service as we knew it yet when the author of Hebrews wrote this. The church as we know it today didn't exist. It's like when people come up to me and they quote Leviticus 19, because if you don't know, I have some tattoos, and sometimes people, well-intentioned, I think, they come up to me and they quote Leviticus 19 and says, well, in Leviticus 19, it says that you shouldn't get tattoos. So Travis, what's your deal? Even though tattoo shops didn't exist in the time of Leviticus, they couldn't possibly be talking about this. It's not like someone in Israel had a really crazy night, got a lower back butterfly tattoo, and Moses was like, hey, we should probably hold off on that, right? Like, that's not what Leviticus 19 is about. That's another story. But when people use Hebrews 10 as a means to get you to sit in a seat on Sunday, I would argue we're sort of missing the point of what the original author was actually trying to get us to understand, because it was so much more beautiful than just showing up to a service on Sunday. In fact, in Hebrews, the word assembly, it means gathered life. When he says, don't forsake the assembly, he's talking about shared presence, shared rhythms, shared responsibility. He's talking about this idea of like a community of people who are living under a common rule of life together, and they are walking together as they walk with Jesus in this life. It's so much more than just sitting in rows for an hour and 15 minutes on a Sunday morning. And while I think, sure, you can maybe imply a gathering like this one into Hebrews 10, if you think that's all the writer is talking about, then you're missing the bigger picture. You see, the writer of Hebrews was not envisioning a program we attend. He was envisioning and inviting us into a family that we belong to. The warning in Hebrews 10 isn't don't miss church. The warning is be careful that you don't abandon the community that holds you together. The warning in Hebrews 10 is don't drift into isolation. Don't try to be the superstar and forget your need for the team. Don't slowly disappear. Don't convince yourself that you can do faith alone, because you can't. I can't. Not even Jesus did his faith alone. You know that? Before Jesus gave one teaching, before Jesus performed one miracle, before Jesus deployed one strategy, what was the first thing Jesus did? He formed a circle. He picked his companions. He picked those that he would be traveling with. And it was only after he built his company of companions did he begin to fully step into the life that God had designed for him. And I would argue, and it's up to you to believe me or not, but I would argue that you will never fully step into the life that you were designed for until you become intentional about the company you walk with. It's not just about where you're going and how you're going to get there. It's about who's walking with you that will determine whether you actually reach the goals or not. And this goes against the grain of what we hear in our culture, right? Because every year we hear the same new cheesy slogan, new year, finish it with me, new me, right? It's this cliche, and we do it year after year. We want it to be a new and better version of ourselves, so we make new goals, we create new strategies, we dream about what the next year could hold. And again, none of this is wrong. Do it. I love that you're setting goals. But none of it, while necessarily wrong, a strong argument can be made that you could have all the right goals, you could have all the right strategies, and yet you completely miss the right life because you weren't traveling with the right people. And we celebrate individual greatness in America. So this message of like, hey, you can't do it alone really conflicts with the message we see and receive every day in our country, because we borderline obsess about individual greatness. But the truth is that nothing meaningful is built alone. Athletes need teams, right? As talented as Steph Curry is, can I get an amen, somebody? Like as talented as he is, he would never say that he could win a championship without Clay and Draymond and Andre Iguodala, right? No, he wouldn't. He knew that he needed the team. Artists need collaborators. As brilliant as Steve Jobs was, you don't have Apple without Steve Wozniak. Movements need communities. As motivating and courageous as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was, he didn't build a movement alone. It was powered by local churches, community leaders, families, and volunteers who kept the momentum going when things got dangerous. And so it is with our faith in our lives. You can have passion, which I bet you do. You can have intelligence, which I know you have. And you can have discipline, which you also have, and yet still lose your way if you're isolated, if you're trying to go at it alone. As Proverbs says, the popular verse, he says, as iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. I wonder if 2026, some of us actually need to redefine what a friend is. Because some of us have people in our lives that we call friends. They don't actually make you any better, though. They don't actually push you any further. They don't actually encourage you or challenge you. They're not actually a friend, according to Scripture. They're just a person in your life. And I wonder if maybe some of us this year, we need to take an inventory of who are my friends, and are there some people that I need to remove or create healthy distance from, or are there some people I need to draw closer to? As iron sharpens iron, so a friend sharpens a friend. If you have one person with a drinking problem and all their friends look around at them and go, oh, that's just Susie. You know her. She just gets a little crazy on Friday, but it's like every Friday and Saturday and Sunday. You're not their friend if you don't intervene. Or you have a person who is just perpetually and toxically negative. They talk negative about other people. They talk negative about the world. They talk negative about anything hopeful. They're just negative. They just have no hope in them. And people are like, it's just them. And yet you never challenge them, never encourage them, never get down to the root of their cynicism. Then I would argue you're not their friend like you might think you are. Because friends sharpen one another. They actually make one another better. Do your friends actually make you better? If they don't, Scripture says they're just people in your life. Or as James Clear puts it, he says, your environment is the invisible hand that shapes behavior. Who you surround yourself with will shape who you become, whether you want it to or not. Now, the pushback in San Francisco, right, I think is like a lot of us, we go, yeah, of course we want friends like this. I mean, I meet people every week here at Canvas. They'll say, I want community. It's so hard in San Francisco. Has anyone else thought finding friends in San Francisco is really difficult? Right? Like numerous people every week going like, I can't find my place. So I love what you're talking about, Travis, but maybe that'll happen when I move out of the city. Maybe only community can be found in Marin. Maybe it's only found in Dublin, and it's not, all right? You can experience it here in San Francisco. And I know it's hard, right? People move like every 2 to 3 years. That's the worst. People are so busy here. And they're hustling and they're trying to move up the ladder, trying to make more money, trying to get their company off the ground. Like, it can be hard to build community. I hear people, I went to a small group like one whole time and it didn't work, Travis. So like all of that might be true. But here's something we need to say out loud because for some reason we forget it. And yet it's true. The hardest things in life are often the things that are most worth doing. Like, we know this is true. The hardest things in life are most often the things that are most worth doing. That's true of your career, isn't it? It's true of your health. It's true of anything meaningful you've built. If you've ever built anything meaningful and I was like, was it hard? And you're like, no, it was actually great. It's super easy. Everything went according to plan, very linear, up and to the right the entire time. It was awesome. Like, I would question how meaningful it was. Because anything meaningful that you make, anything meaningful that you pursue will be difficult, including relationships. Real relationships take time. Real relationships take emotional risk. They take showing up when it would be easier to stay home, when it would be easier to to settle for relationships behind a screen as opposed to relationships face to face. Difficulty doesn't mean something is wrong. Difficulty doesn't mean something is impossible. Yes, San Francisco is transient. Yes, people are busy. Yes, building community takes intentionality and resilience, but difficulty usually just means you're on the border of something that really matters. So if you're like, gosh, this is so hard, good. That means you're close to something that matters. You're working towards something that's significant. And it's up to you whether you will do the work of building the right kind of community that you travel with. Like the family you build is up to you. The family you were born with, those are the cards you were dealt. But the family you build, that's up to you. And the family you build cannot be built by anyone but you. I can't build it for you. A program can't build it for you. There's not an app that will build it for you. If you want to build family, you've got to be intentional and build it yourself. And I would argue the success of this next year might just depend on the family you build. It might just depend on the community and companions you travel with. And so I know for the first teaching of 2026, this is probably not the New Year's resolution teaching you were expecting, but I'm so bored with the new year, new me. And I'm so bored with vision boarding and all the stuff. Like, you do you, but like, I really want to have a different year. I really want to have a better year. I want to be healthier at the end of this year. I want to be thriving in my faith. And I don't think I can do it alone. How about you? Like, I just don't think there's a version of success where I go, I did it and I didn't need anybody. I think we all need one another, because what if the key to 2026 isn't just better goals? What if it's about better companions and being more intentional about building that family that you were created for? So let me give you a few things, a few places to start with, and then we'll wrap up. If you're looking like, how do I even begin to do this? How do I step into this? How do I begin to build this family you're talking about? The first thing I would invite you to do is stay connected. Don't disappear. Like, seriously, don't disappear. Choose presence. Choose consistency. Allow yourself to be seen by others. I mean, what does that look like? It might look like after a Sunday service, instead of as soon as the service ends, when I see it every week, service ends and somebody's like, bye, and they're like sprinting to the door. Like, I mean, what if you didn't do that? You know, what if you stayed in the lobby? You're like, but no one's talking to me. Go talk to somebody. Cross the room. Take the risk. It's hard. Yep. Building community is really hard. Building community is really scary. It requires vulnerability. Maybe it's just staying a little bit longer and hanging out. Maybe it's inviting someone to coffee. I don't know what it looks like, but I want you to stay connected. Stay connected to your companions, to your community. But then the second is this. I think this is so important. Choose depth over utility. Choose depth over utility. Ask yourself, am I loving people or am I using them? And be careful, because we can lie to ourselves. Like, am I really loving people, or am I simply just using them for my own goals? Do I want friends without the willingness to be a friend? Now, here's a practical tip when it comes to choosing depth over utility. If you want better friendships, learn how to ask better questions. I was having a conversation with somebody in my family that it's just very surfacey, and I hate shallow surface conversations. Anybody else with me? Like, I don't want to talk about the weather. And this relationship, is, as much as I want it to go deeper, I'm finding it's a struggle, because the questions always stay at 30,000 feet. And so if you want 30,000 feet relationships, ask 30,000 foot questions. What's a 30,000 foot question? How's life? What do you want to know? Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, what do you want me to say? Like, I have some people who are like, so like, what did you do over the weekend? Like 30,000 foot questions. Ask better questions if you want better relationships. What's the better question? Hey, what's one thing that's challenging you the most right now in your life? Hey, what's like an area of growth you're hoping to experience in your career this year? Like, what's one question of your faith that you just like are struggling to get, like, to find clarity on? And some of you are like, I could never ask questions like that. Great, you'll probably have shallow relationships. But if you want deeper ones, if you want deeper relationships, ask deeper questions. Ask better questions. Third thing is this: take one small step daily. Maybe, like I said, it's staying after service. Maybe it's joining Alpha's preview night or registering for the next round of Practicing the Way. Maybe that's your next step. Maybe it's saying yes to lunch or dinner, even though you would much rather just be at home at night. Maybe it's making that goal that, hey, for the next 90 days, I'm going to say yes to every invitation to go to lunch or dinner. And if you're like, I got no invitations, then I'm going to invite one person a week. I'm going to actually invite somebody. Like, what does one small step look like for you? Because I believe that if you stay connected, you choose depth over utility, and you take one small step daily, I wonder where those small steps will lead you in 2026. My hope, my prayer is it will lead you to deeper, more meaningful and rich community. Because as much as I love your goals, it's not all about the destination. As much as I think the process is important, it's not all about the journey. But life is largely about the company you travel with. So let's make 2026 the year that we decide we're going to travel with the right people, and we're going to build the family that we long for.